A job I didn't really want to have to do right now. Well, at least life could be a lot worse. Do you know what? I should have stayed in bed. Good morning folks, welcome back to the channel and another ultra cycling related video. It's been a while since I said that, and we are flying into the weekend. Hope you're all well. If you're already subscribed, thanks a lot for coming back. And if you're new, I'm Andy, I'm an ultra cyclist on the south coast of England, and I make videos about ultra training, kit and adventures. So subscribe for more ultra cycling videos like this. You can tell I got a headwind on the cars for today. I got a bit of a loop out to the city of Salisbury. It's 100 miles, not really an out and back. I'm coming back via the New Forest, which is always nice. But I do have a headwind all the way to Salisbury. Should have a pretty decent tailwind coming back, I hope. That said, I'm gonna have some fun today. I'm on my tarmac, a bit faster than the Mason. I just bloody love riding this thing. Specialized do say aero is everything. For the first half of this ride, I'm going to agree with them. Quite a long climb now. As of today, it's 2 weeks since All Points North. If you've been following along for a while or recently, you'll know I've raced All Points North 2 weeks ago and it didn't exactly go to plan. I did make a full-length documentary of that event and my experience. Go give that a watch if you're interested in what happened and what went wrong there. There's a lot to learn. So I had a week to rest, chill out, lick my wounds. Anyway, much better now. And this week, back to training. Because we've now got 6 weeks to the TCR. And if you don't know that, the transcontinental race is 4,000 kilometers. Gonna need all the help I can get. Whilst I just stopped for that tractor, I've already replied to the majority of the comments on the All Points North video. So I just wanted to say thanks. Really appreciate all the comments and some of the feedback that it's a real video. And I said from the beginning, which was 6 months ago, always said from the beginning, I'll show the good and the bad. There are people that show videos riding 300 odd K. All you see is smiles, sunsets, and we know it ain't always like that. So I'll show the bad as well as the good. People will learn from it, I'll learn from it. Anyway, thanks for all the nice comments, really appreciated. Climbing again, so out of breath. I know what you're thinking. What's he going to bore us with today? Coming out of an event like All Points North, you pick up a few tips and learn a few things. That's really, for me, one of the main benefits of these events. And any cycling event, really. It's going to give you an adventure, a great experience. But I think one of the most underrated aspects is networking, meeting like-minded people. I was speaking to somebody on Instagram the other day who was at All Points North and watches these videos, and she was saying that it was great to see so many people into the same thing she is. I think for us it's a bit more special because we go further than a lot of people do, and there aren't as many people that will ride those kind of distances. So to get an opportunity to have tons of people in the room and tons of people that are better than you, in my case, is a perfect opportunity to pick people's brains. Learn a certain amount. I'll learn just from making mistakes. Obviously, as you'll see from the event, there were some mistakes to learn from. But also, sitting down and eating food with the guy that won the race and a few people that came in the top 10 is perfect opportunity to see what they do. Learn from their countless hours of training and testing. Some things might not work for you, but there might be some things that you didn't consider. Both times now, that's been the case for me. Also had a couple of comments, am I going to do a lessons learned video? And I did intend to, yeah. So here it is. But first, probably going to get this headwind dealt with. I'm about 33 miles into 100. So I'm almost at the turnaround point, and I should be able to concentrate on talking to this camera without battling into a headwind. And hopefully find some coffee. Let's go. What a view up here, stunning. So I'll start going through these points that I picked up on, and you can probably tell by now, I don't really plan these videos. There's no storyboards and no notes, but there's 4 or 5 things that I picked up on. Something's biting my head. What the hell? Lovely, I think that was a bug bite on my forehead. Anyway, the first thing that's been on my mind is nutrition. Actually, during the last All Points North, I picked up the tip to set a reminder, an alert on my Garmin every half an hour to remind myself to eat regularly and make sure I get the food in. But there came a point, this time and last time, 8 AM roughly, so after about 12 hours of riding, when my legs were just completely dead. Part of me wonders if that's just riding through the night, no sleep. It could be. But then I was thinking, am I getting enough carbs? Yes, I'm eating often, but how much? And I thought a cereal bar or something substantial every half an hour, that's plenty. When I look at it, it's about 40 grams an hour. And the reality is, depending on where you look, the consensus is generally 60 to 90 grams an hour for endurance. Again, do your own research, that's just what I found. But I believe somewhere around 60 grams an hour. And then if you're pushing into ultra, the requirement will go up to more like the 90. So that made me think I'm massively under fueling. So the first thing I'm trying is increasing my carbs. It's quite a lot, to be honest, increasing the intake by 50%. On this ride, I've changed the alerts to every 20 minutes. So the same food, 20 grams-ish roughly, every 20 minutes. And the first thing I'll say, I feel like I'm just constantly eating. Not ideal so far, but I think what I'm going to do is try carbohydrate powder in my bottles, so at least I can bolster it that way. All right? Nice bike. Cheers. Love this bike. But I think if I'm drinking, maybe like 90 grams or so in my bottle, and a bottle every 2-3 hours, then I can go back to eating every half an hour, and I should be getting enough carbs overall. And that's not going to help in the TCR. Can't carry that much powder over 10-15 days or whatever it takes me. So that's going to be more a case of survival. But on a day like today, out for a 100-mile training ride, it could make my life a hell of a lot easier. Great. Well, that's a job I didn't really want to have to do right now. Flying down a descent, hit a piece of flint or something, and quite a loud crack. Look at the state of this road. The funny thing is, one of the things I was going to talk about was tubeless. That I basically decided tubeless was the way for my endurance bike. I think it still is. I'm not going to let this put me off, but that's a pretty big slash. In all honesty, that would have been just as bad with this tube in there. The only thing is, it looks like I'm out of tubeless sealant, which is not great. So I'm going to plug that and hope for the best. Maybe there's a little bit in there. For whatever reason, it hasn't sprayed sealant everywhere. When I was talking to 3 people at the very end of the race, 3 from the top 10. 2 of them were using carbohydrate powder, and I thought, well, that's a really good idea. I'm going to try that. One of them finished 2nd last year and 4th this year at All Points North, and he rides 32mm tubeless. My previous tyres were 32mm, never had punctures. He actually had the same tyres for this event that he was using at the TCR last year. So the same tyres, tubeless setup. Almost a year later, same tyres made it all the way through the TCR, all the way through the following year, and then all the way through All Points North. You can have problems here and there, nothing's perfect. But that was a pretty good argument for me that it would work. And I think, to be honest, these tyres are 28mm. When I was 32mm, slightly less pressure was much better for avoiding punctures. So I'm probably going to do that still. Right now, I better fix this puncture. I think that seems to be plugged. I've probably got a bit to learn about tubeless really, but as soon as I poked the bacon strip through, I got a bit of sealant through the hole. So there's sealant in there, just didn't spray all over the bike this time for whatever reason. But anyway, it's plugged. Let's see if it inflates. Whatever that was, it hit hard. There's 2 holes, so let's plug in a second. Well. Looks like the tube's going in. Great. Feels like a pretty appropriate name to me. Stony Batter Lane. Covered in crap, and I got battered. So that's tube in, seems to be fine, and not far from Salisbury, so get to Salisbury. Should be alright, I think. On the move again. Let's be honest, that was not ideal, but the timing was pretty funny. So let's see on the tubeless front. I'll have a think about the setup I'm going to go with. I've got 6 weeks to test it. If all else fails and I don't like it, I put some tubes in. Changing the tube is really easy, so if I go with it and it fails on me, I'll stick a tube in. The tube that I put in, I'm a few miles down the road and it's not holding air. I just stopped to top it up, and I can see bubbles where there's a small amount of sealant. I can see small bubbles right on that big slash. Not sure if you can see it in the video, but I think riding on that crappy lane with a big slash, it's probably nicked the inner tube underneath. It's probably a bit exposed, so I might be a little bit stuck. I'm only a few miles from Salisbury. My options are either buy another tube and risk it, or call it, because that tyre needs to be replaced now, which is great. If I buy a tube and put it in there, I think with the size of that hole, it's just going to puncture again on the way home. Let's see what happens, how much it's gone down by the time I get to Salisbury. This is looking a bit touch and go. Not sure how far I am from Salisbury. basically in the middle of nowhere now. Great. Oh well. Another thing I was going to bring up about what I learned at the event is just viewing failure differently. And the limits of what we do. Limits of ourselves, because I've always looked at this as trying to find my own limit. And realising that actually there isn't a breaking point. And when you think you found the limit, it doesn't have to be disappointing. It's a temporary limit. Because you go away, regroup, come back, overcome that issue, and then your limit will be further next time. That doesn't really extend to this ride. This is just a training ride that's gone a little bit awry. Giving up doesn't have to be negative. There are loads of positives to take away from a bad experience. And it's a really good opportunity to grow. That's something I learned at the event, and I'll value and look back on fondly over time. This is going very well. It's not holding air whatsoever, so I found a train station 3 miles away, and I'm pumping up the tyre every 5 minutes to get there. Nightmare. I've got a theory that the tubeless ready tyres aren't as robust as the tubed tyres. Before these tyres, I had GP5000 tubes, and I had on my other bike 4 season tubes. Never really had any issues, never get punctures. And these tyres, even with tubes in, not doing very well at all. A lot to think about there. Anyway, screwed my ride up today, so that's not great. Anyway, these things happen. Buy some new tyres, figure out where to go from here. Yeah, I've had enough pumping that up. I'm going to walk. It's about 15 minutes, if that, to the town. I'm thinking back, maybe I should have put a boot in there under that slash before I put the inner tube in. Quite a stupid person, really. Don't really think these things through. It's probably a consequence not having had Punctures for a really long time. I tend to carry things as boots on my endurance bike, not so much on this one, but actually I'm sure I could have found something and probably should have, and I wouldn't be in this situation right now. I think some people might take this as a sign, just as I made my mind up and thought, yeah, let's do it, let's go tubeless. This happens. Well, at least life could be a lot worse. What? Do you know what? I should have stayed in bed. I have no idea if the camera showed that up, but just kick a man when he's down and add insult to injury. A fly just went straight into my windpipe. As I was saying, things could be a lot worse. It's a beautiful day. Gorgeous countryside. I'm just moving at a fraction of the pace I'd like to be. We are back on the road. 1 train ride, 2 days, and a new bike later. Couldn't go out on a negative like that. Just a slight intermission. I've ride a couple hours of zone 2 on a Tuesday, which I don't film. It's probably really bloody boring. I'm sure it's no fun watching me ride around in circles for 2 hours. I managed to get through most of the points on the day anyway, so luckily I only have one thing left to mention. Let's cover that off then, finish this training ride and go buy some new tyres. When I got back to the finish and I was chatting to some people that were at the TCR last year, one person asked me, didn't you have a spare Garmin? Obviously no, I didn't. She asked the question like it was really obvious, and I suppose in hindsight maybe it kind of is. So I think that's something I'm going to look into. I like the look of the 1040 solar, but it's quite expensive. So I'm going to weigh that up. I think you'll agree it would be really handy to have 2 Garmins. I'm sure you'll also agree an extra 400-500 quid or so for a 1040. It's quite a lot. So I'm going to think about that. Just managed to just about bring this together and finish this one off today. Been a slight challenge this week, but when is it not? Didn't get a plan, but still 3-4 hours of good training, and I was pushing quite hard, so I got a good workout and got to test the nutrition side of things pretty well too. So all is not lost. Training's almost over. I'm going to call it here on a much more positive note, at the beach, sort of in the sun. Have a good week all of you. I'll see you on the next one.